Hello everybody and welcome to Organian's Puzzle Box. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create an ice shader for Unreal Engine 5. It does work in 4 as well, but this is done in 5.2. This tutorial comes as a courtesy from Damian Ramirez, who is a very active supporter of Organian's Puzzle Box. He's on Discord all the time on the server, helping people and providing them with amazing material. The link to his ArtStation profile is in the description below. This guy does some fantastic work, and you can learn a lot of things from him and get a lot of free resources. He's actually added the textures that are being used in this particular tutorial also can be downloaded from the project files below. So if you actually want to get the project files from my Patreon page for free, just check the description below so you can get that project file, no problem, and you can actually follow along with that if you want to. If not, you can just do it from scratch based on this tutorial. But yeah, Damien, I really love you, man. But if you want to support the Organian Puzzle Box channel and you enjoyed this tutorial, please consider leaving a like, comment and subscribe, and also have a look at the shop. Maybe you're interested in any of the projects that I offer. For the price of a coffee, you can have my space scenes or whatever else you like. So yeah, I do really enjoy coffee. Alright, so let's begin by having a look at the material itself and how it sort of performs here in just a normal scene after it's been set up. The material is quite simple. The node group to create this is not complex, and anybody could really do it and follow along. Now what's interesting is that when you look at the ground here, this is more visible when you look at a flat plane like this or a landscape. If I move to the left and to the right, you'll notice that there's a layer of some scratches and this sort of white foam that looks as if it's sort of above the surface, while there's a surface underneath, which would be like the water, that would be like where the like water would be underneath the ice. And the reason why this is done this way is that it gives a bit more complexity to the shader and makes it look as if it's got more depth, when actually it's just a flat plane, as you'll see right here. There's nothing underneath that. Right, and the surface of these rocks, these are just rocks, these are nanite rocks that are using the same sort of material shader, and you can see in here that they have some nice shapes and they're using the same type of material, although because of the UV scale, this looks a bit different than what it does on this plane. Now, all of this material is controlled by a material instance, like what you're seeing over here, and this is the material itself. Let me just make this a bit smaller like this so you're able to see the settings, and you'll notice we've got a depth sort of slider in here, and as we do this makes the ice look a lot more stylized and just gives it a bit a different sort of vibe to it. I normally keep this to a 0 if I'm going for a more realistic looking ice. Obviously the ice realism or stylization comes from what type of textures you're using as well. And then we've got the exponent, which basically means that if you decrease this number, it will start to make the surface, this sort of look of the ice turn more into like a snowy look, like it's got some snow on it. It just makes the light in the scene interact a lot more directly with the surface and just creating a bit more sort of interest in there. But it really depends on what you're going for. So as you can see, this is when we decrease that, we get to see the surface underneath a bit more, so a lot less shine of the surface. We've also got the height layer. So the height layer pretty much makes sure that the texture above, the one that I was talking about with the scratches and that sort of foam, it's either going up like that, above, or you can actually take it below. So the surface is, those scratches and everything there is actually below now what we were seeing as the depth layer of the ice. So let's just go above again like that, like we were. And now what you're also noticing in here is an emissive. So we can make the light pretty much, the ice glow in the dark, or we can just darken it. So that's what this ice would look like with this particular lighting and this environment now. When it's getting darker outside. So that's why I'm using the emissive light to just create a bit more interest in this. Okay, then we've got the UVs. So it says in here normal UV, but actually it's just the UV of the layer that's above right now. So that's the scratches in that foam, and you're seeing how it's sort of affecting the rocks over here, but also the surface. And we have some colors, so we could change the colors of this if we want to. And of course, these are going to play a role in setting up the look and feel of the ice as well, which I will show you in just a bit when we start setting up the material. So that's pretty much it for the the settings that I've got so far. I wanted to keep it nice and simple, and just get the job done with having a nice sort of shader effect. This is using an opaque shader right now, but you could turn this into translucent to get a bit more detail as well. So let's have a look at let's start setting up the node so that we can make our shader. Okay, so let's start with our material. We're going to be bringing in the content browser. Now you're seeing in here that I've got a nice material, obviously, and some textures, but we're not going to worry about that for now. We're just going to right click and create a new material, and we're going to call this ice, right? And then we're going to double click it to open the ice node. I'm just going to put it up here like that. And we're starting off with our material, base in here. And we're not changing anything in these properties as of yet. We might do, depending on what we're looking for with the material. But what we're going to do is we're going to have to use the base color, the emissive color in here, the normal, and potentially the refraction if we're going to make this into a translucent material. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set up the exponent of the material, which means it's basically a Fresnel that allows for the surface of our plane of our mesh to sort of be able to cast some detail from the sun that it's receiving. So in order to do that, we are going to search for a Fresnel node and add it in here. We're leaving the base reflect fraction input. We're going to leave that to a 0.04, and in here in the exponent we're going to actually put in a parameter. So I'm going to call that exponent, just like that, and then I'm going to link that in there and leave the default value of 1 for now, and then I can plug that into the base color, or actually I could mix between a group of textures so that I can actually have the Fresnel effect, because if I just put it in here, the Fresnel effect will just affect the whole mesh. So if I change this to like a plane, you can see that the Fresnel is sort of affecting the edges like that, or it can also turn all the way to the center depending on the camera angle. But that's not something that we want. We want it to be based on a texture. So we're going to put an add node over here so we can connect the Fresnel, so we can put we can do some additional textures. So the first thing we want to add is some textures that are going to be displayed on the top layer of our ice, and then a normal map, and also a texture that's going to sort of be underneath and is going to drive our emissive color that's going to be underneath of the ice texture. So in order for us to do that, from this add point, I'm just going to drag in a multiply. Actually, yeah, there we go, like that. So this multiplied node is able to do our calculation between our normal map and our base color, right? And we are going to use a lerp interpolate, which effectively means that it's using an alpha node to determine if it's showing A and B or anything in between, right? So the alpha will decide that. And then we're going to be plugging this into the A value of the multiply node like that, okay? And then we've got to bring something into the A value here of the lerp node. And for us to do this, we are going to use 2 textures, right? And for that, I'm going to control space, and I've got 2 textures in here that I'm going to use, which one of them is cracked texture. Again, these textures are available on the description below for you to download, and these come in from Damian Ramirez, which was kind enough to provide them, but you can use whatever textures you would like for this. So we are going to drop this texture for cracks, okay? And then we are going to drag this very bright texture for sort of like the foam or whatever you want to call it, like particles and whatnot that are going to be coming together with the cracks. So when we have these 2 textures in here, we want to create. We want to put them together, basically. So we're just going to add an add node. You can hold A and left click to add an add node if you don't know how to do that. And then we also want to saturate this, to subtract value of 0.5 out of this node. So I'm going to type in subtract here, and I'm going to put this to a 0.5. Now, if you right click the node and preview it, this will show you what's going on. So if I subtract 0, then the texture will be displayed as it is. If I subtract 1, it will darken completely the texture. If I subtract a 0.5, this is what happens. So I'm you know, creating a bit of a harder edge. You don't necessarily have to do this. You can do whatever you want, but let's just leave it at 0.5. With that subtraction done, we can connect this to the B value, and then we can connect this to the A value like that. And this can go into a power node before it feeds into this lerp. So I'm going to be searching for power. I'm going to connect this to the base, and we're going to use a power of 2 to connect over into the A value of the lerp node. Now, so far, we're not really seeing anything, and that's because I need to connect this to the base color in there. And again, we're sort of starting to see something, but it's not very apparent because we have nothing in the B value of the lerp node, and we've got nothing in the alpha. Now, these are quite simple, so I'm going to press 4 on the keyboard and left click to add a color, and I'm going to connect this to the B value. And then I'm also going to be doing another one, and I'm going to connect this to the alpha value. Now, it says in here, arithmetic between type float 3 and type float 4 are undefined, okay? So we've got to obviously fix that, but we'll get to it in just a little bit. Now, the important thing here to do is set the colors. So for me, I'm going to go for like sort of a darker, well, a blue like that. And then for this one, we're going to go probably for a light, well, yeah, maybe a lighter blue like that. So these two colors will sort of determine, this alpha will determine whether this color comes through more than this entire texture setup from here. Okay, now with that done, we need to create a bump offset node for these two textures so that we get a nice sort of parallax effect, which was what you were seeing when we were moving from left to right on here when you look at the textures in there to give that depth to the ice material. So I'm going to search for a bump offset node, and that can connect into the UV of these textures like that. And now we need to have a height input, so I'm going to press S on the keyboard and left click and gonna type this as height layer. And then this can connect to the height value. We can put that to a number of 2 maybe. And we also need a coordinate for this. So I'm going to be looking for a texture coordinate node, and I'm going to connect that to the coordinate in there. But if we want to change the UV of these two textures, we can add a multiply right here and do another scalar parameter and just call it UV tile. We can leave this as 0 to be the default value, and we can plug it in there and do something like that. And now we can effectively modify the UV tile of these textures with that parameter. Okay, now it's time for us to, you know, fix this sort of lerp problem here as well. And very importantly is that we obviously need to feed something into this multiply node here that comes from the lerp node. But we've got to understand, why is it giving this error here? What does this actually mean? In order to fix this, it's quite simple. You right click the material itself and convert it to a parameter, which will then fix our problem straight away. And I'm going to call this control light. And then this is going to be, again, converted to a parameter, control dark. Okay, and these things will play a factor into what we're doing. The material itself right now is not very visible what's going on because we still are missing this. Now, if I connect this over here, yeah, still not making we're still not sort of dividing the material. Well, you'll see how this sort of comes together very soon once we start feeding this multiply into the emissive color, which we can do now. I'm going to add a multiply node in here and connect it to the emissive color, and I'm going to take this multiply node that you're seeing right here and connect it to the A value, while in the B value I'm going to add a scalar parameter and call it ice emissive, and we can connect that into the B value in there. And I'm going to leave it to a value of maybe 1, just as a default value of 1. That should be fine. And now we need to connect the remaining nodes into this multiply here. So far, so good, quite simple, right? Now, we're going to take this texture and we're going to Control D to duplicate it, like that. And this texture, we only need to use the R channel. I'm going to plug this into this multiply right here. And already you're noticing that our ice material is starting to get some texture, right? So it's starting to look like something. Okay. Now we need to adjust the UVs. Well, yeah, we need to adjust the UVs of this based on a custom reflection vector. And we're going to be getting the reflection vector from a normal map. Now, for a normal map, I'm going to be control space, going to the all tab in here, and I'm just going to filter, so you can add filters from here. I'm just going to filter for texture. And the reason why I've done that is because I'm trying to look for a normal map. But you can bring in whatever normal map you want. Just the engine will come with some normal maps on its own. And for example, I could use this one from here, or I can have a look in here and, you know, just have a look for something else. Maybe type in water, and that will bring in water normal map. As you can see, generally the engine should have these. So I'm just going to drag this in, which is a seamless normal map, because I need it. First of all, I need to feed the normal map into the normal of the material, which is right up here. Also, let me just try and, you know, double click in here and move this. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to sort of, you know, clean it up a bit like that. I was trying to do it the blended way, but I forgot that doesn't work. Right, so I've added the normal map in there, but then I'm also going to be blending this into a custom reflection vector. So what I mean by this is we actually type in here to search for a custom reflection vector, and we can feed the normal map into that, like that. And now we're going to have to start masking some, you know, some of the RGB values. This custom reflection vector needs a camera vector in here, so we can search for a camera vector VS, and we're going to transform from a tangent space to a world space. So let me just search for transform. It's already set up the tangent space to world space. I can connect this camera vector right here, and then this over into the camera vector here, like that. And now I need to add in a component mask, which has by default masking R and G, and I can duplicate that and you know, take off the R value. So far, by the way, if we right click in here and we start previewing, you can see what the normal map, you know, is doing based on this. Now, if we remove that, it's still going to be working in the sort of the same way, but once we add this node, obviously it's taking into account the transformation from a tangent space to a world space. So you can see what these nodes are doing as you right click and stop, you know, preview them. So if we, for example, we connect this in here into this mask, and we, sorry, not convert to a parameter, we can just preview. We can now see that we are masking the blue value out of this, and we're just getting the RNG. So we're going to connect this over here as well. So we're masking the G value. And we want to now, this is the point where this branch deals with the getting the stylization look for the ice, in case we want that. So with the texture that we've had up here, this one, we can actually duplicate it. We can use another texture if we want, but we can duplicate this. We'll need some texture coordination. Oh, not texture cropping, sorry. Texture coordinate, and then we can type that, we can put that into the UV map like that. And I want to then add a multiply node in here and connect the R value, sorry, the this R value to the red channel to the multiply node. And then for this, we want to create a scalar parameter, and we're going to call it depth, or you could call it stylization, right, if you want, like that. And this node can now connect to a divide node. So I'm just going to put D and left click for a divide node. I'm going to connect that to the A value, because we want to divide this by the red and blue channel of the normal map, but want to make sure that we're using an absolute value. And if you hover over these things, you know, oh, actually, this one doesn't really have any extra details on it, unfortunately, but some of the nodes normally will have details of what they do. Basically, ABS stands for absolute value. So we're going to just get the absolute value of our red and blue channels of the normal map, and we're going to divide this texture by that. Okay, and now from this mask, we need to add another multiply in here, connect this mask like that, and then connect the divide over into this multiply node. At which point I would like to divide this further. So if we preview this, I would like to divide this value further. So I'm just going to put a multiply in here. So actually the values that I found that works here. So this divide we'll divide 1 by 4. We'll connect it in there, like in this multiply in here like that, and then this multiply like that. Again, these are numbers that Damien and myself have worked out that works best for this. So if I preview now, again, we're not really seeing anything, but let me just connect this to this texture. So we're doing an add node over here. We want to make sure that we're doing a texture coordinate for the UVs of this texture. So we're going to connect them this way and then up into the UV like that. Let's just stop previewing and seeing the material all together. Let me just apply it as well. So that's how the material looks like right now, okay? And it's fed through the entire shader in here. We've got everything. We don't have a refraction for it. Again, we can use that if we want with a translucent shader, and that's very easy to do. We just take the slurp node, duplicate it. We can connect it into the refraction even though it's not active, because we can still do changes. I'm going to put a value of 1 in here, and then let me just duplicate that and do a value of 1.52. And I'm going to put that into the B value. And then for the alpha, we're going to use a Fresnel. Not Fresnel, Fresnel. I'm going to put that in the alpha and leave the default values. And if we do that, then basically we're going to have a good, sort of realistic refraction number for it if we're using a translucent material. But I find that if you switch over to the translucent material, you're going to have issues, well, such as, performance drops. But also, you're going to have issues with meshes sometimes sort of disappearing when they call each other out because of the multiple meshes that are translucent overlapping each other. Right, so I'm just going to apply that, and this is the material that we've got. Now, in the map over here, if we go back, let me just press this button to search for it in the folder view. So if I go back to my map, and control space, right click this to create a material instance. And now I've got it selected. So if I select the plane and press this button over here, this will add the material to the plane. So now it's being added. And then we can double click this to bring the material instance. Let me just drag that out so we can see the settings that we've got available for it. And we can start activating all of these just to be able to see what we're doing. So this is a stylization that we can do if we want to have a more stylized ice. This is the UV tile that we can do as well. The UV tile is very important because it allows us to scale the texture that we're seeing above. So I'm just going to do like a smaller number like that, but we're not really seeing a lot of detail. So what we're going to do is we want to look at the exponent in here and decrease it a bit. And we can look at the emissive, or we can tone that down. But I'm just going to do something like that. But then very importantly, I need to play around with the material. So if I do a darker color like that, okay, and then this one may be a lighter color, something like that, then what you're seeing is that we have our nice sort of icy look. And this is what it looks like that. Now I'm quickly going to turn the settings on for translucency just so you can see how that is displayed. I'm also going to be adding the same material to these two rocks over here as well. So very quickly going over to the material, press the material over here, and change this from opaque to translucent, and then we can apply. And this is what the material looks like now, and this is where the problem comes in. Like, you can notice how sometimes it just sort of cuts through the material because of the translucency, having multiple translucent objects doing this. But if you do use translucency, you do get sort of this effect where you can kind of see the edges through it as well, kind of like a sort of a see-through mode, but you can see it just glitches out a lot if you do this. If you deactivate the plane, it won't glitch as much, but then you might be able to get glitches between these. So it's, you could probably duplicate this more and, just scale up and create multiple meshes like that, which would be fine. but you can still see the glitches, and that's the problem if you're doing it this way. This is why I would recommend just sticking, sorry, with the opaque. Now, one thing you're noticing is that we're not getting the refraction even though we turn on translucency, and the reason is because you want to change your shading model to a subsurface profile. Sorry, actually, no, you don't want to do that. Well, you want to, well, yeah, sorry, you do want to change to a subsurface profile because you're not getting the, we're not able to get the normal map, which for some reason doesn't seem to be turning on anyway. So let's just see. I must be doing something else in here that's wrong. But one thing to do is if you go down here at the bottom, you can actually change the refraction method to index of refraction, which will then, yeah, there we go. It's now turned on the normal map and also the refraction. So if we press apply, we've got a normal map active in this material, and we also got an index of refraction. If I bring in the plane again, this is what that sort of looks like. But again, as I said to you, this is glitching out quite a bit. So if you guys have a easy solution for this, let me know. But from what I understand, there isn't that that easy of a solution. And you can then start playing around with things like metallic and reflect and roughness and stuff like that as well. If you switch this back to, well, generally you could go for like a forward subsurface forward shading mode. So if you do that, then that's what this looks like now. And then you can go into your ice material, and now you can play around with metallic and roughness as well. So for example, convert this to a parameter, calling that metallic, and then this one a converted parameter, and we'll do roughness here, and then we apply. And with that done, we can obviously have a look at our material, which is this, and activate metallic, roughness, and then you can sort of do some metallic changes, so make the surface a lot rougher, or like this, for example, this is very rough, like the surface is very rough, but you can also make it so that it's very reflective, right? Sorry, yeah, very reflective, I would say. And again, you can play around with the metallic, make it like a 1 or a 5 or whatever, so that gives it a bit a different sort of look as well. But it's really up to you if you want to do that. I'm just going to switch this back to opaque, click apply, and that's what it looks like when it's opaque, which is fine as well. Again, I probably prefer it more this way, but that's kind of the ice material for this. So I hope this has been useful to you guys, as it has been for me. And yeah, you can see it there with 0 metallic, and then this is what it looks like with some metallic. And look at that, there's so many different effects that you can get with this. It's quite interesting. It's quite an interesting sort of material, I would say. Yeah. Well, I do hope you guys found that tutorial useful. I know I've actually found many shaders in this particular way, just trying things out and just seeing what works, and how this can help me develop new sort of intricate ways of displaying all sorts of different things in Unreal Engine. I hope you guys, as I said, found it useful, and I hope you will consider liking and commenting and subscribing to the video. If you enjoyed this tutorial and you want to see more, take a look at my other tutorials in Unreal Engine and Blender. And yeah, if you want the support of the channel, please feel free. I would like to extend my thank you to all of my Patreons, my Creo members, and people who overall have decided to contribute to the Arganians puzzle box and having a look at my projects, especially the space scenes and all that stuff. So I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you.